Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into a dream many of you share, living abroad. Specifically, somewhere often pictured with endless sunshine, amazing food, and, well, the idea that it's super affordable.
Portugal.
Exactly, Portugal. But what's the real cost of living there, like, right now in 2025?
Yeah.
So our mission today is to kind of pull back the curtain on that postcard image. We've gathered your sources, all the latest data, articles, research, and we're going to unpack exactly what it costs financially to live in Portugal. We'll stack it up against the rest of Europe, even further afield, to give you a really clear, comprehensive picture. Hopefully help you make some, informed decisions, get ready for some surprises and some pretty important shifts happening there.
And the timing for this deep dive, it couldn't be more critical, really. We're seeing immigration to Portugal hitting record levels this year, 2025.
Right.
Plus, you've got these crucial policy changes, like the big one, the end of the non-habitual resident, the NHR tax regime, that finished up in March 2025.
What's huge?
It genuinely reconfigures the whole financial picture for a lot of people who are looking at Portugal.
Absolutely. So let's start there with Portugal's overall appeal. That attractive cost-to-quality ratio it's known for.
Yeah.
It often gets called Western Europe's most affordable place. When we see a cost of living index like around 46.6, what does that actually mean for someone thinking about moving? And how does it manage to keep standards so high, healthcare, safety, lifestyle, even when costs are maybe 28 to 40% lower than its neighbors?
Well, that balance is really the fascinating part, that 46.6 index. Essentially, it means Portugal is less than half the cost of living in, say, New York City, which is typically the benchmark at 100.
Okay.
So it consistently ranks as Western Europe's most affordable spot.
Yeah.
But crucially, it doesn't seem to skimp on those big quality of life things. Safety's high, healthcare is well regarded, the lifestyle is, relaxed. But, and this is a big but, you absolutely have to understand the huge regional variations within Portugal itself.
So it's not just one flat, affordable label across the whole country.
Not at all. No. The differences are honestly quite dramatic. Take Lisbon. It's cosmopolitan. Prices are getting closer to Western European levels. A single person might need, around 1,767 a month, including rent.
Okay.
Head north to Porto. That drops. Maybe 1,400 euro a month for a single person.
Still a fair bit.
Yeah, but then you go into the interior regions, places like Braga or Évora down south. Comfortable living can drop significantly, maybe down to 1,000, 1,200 euros a month.
Wow.
Just to give a family example, the national average budget for a family of 4 might be around 3,010 euro. But stick them in Lisbon, and suddenly you're looking at closer to 4,500 euro. Almost 4,492.
That's a massive difference.
It really is. So where you choose to live is probably the biggest factor driving your budget.
That makes sense. And I guess a lot of that regional difference must come down to housing costs, right? Let's dig into the specifics there.
Housing is definitely the number one driver.
Yep.
In Lisbon city center, renting a one-bedroom apartment, you're easily looking at 1,200 euro a month. And buying around 5,720 euros per square meter.
Right.
Porto, comparatively, offers better value. Rent might average 850 euros, buying around 3,768 people per square meter.
Okay, better.
But the real eye-opener is in those interior cities. Évora, Coimbra. You might find a one-bedroom apartment renting for somewhere between 400 and 700 euros a month.
400 euros.
Yeah. I mean, if you're coming from London or Paris or New York, that number sounds almost made up, right?
It really puts things into perspective. Okay, so housing varies hugely. What about the day-to-day stuff? Groceries, transport, maybe grabbing a coffee or lunch?
Daily expenses are generally quite reasonable across the country. That helps balance things out a bit, even in the pricier cities. Groceries, maybe 150 to 250 for a single person per month.
Yeah.
Families, perhaps 300 to 400.
Okay.
Casual dining is great value. You can often get a decent meal for 80 euro. And everyone loves the Prato do Dia, the dish of the day lunch specials. Fantastic value.
I've heard about those.
Yeah, they're great. Public transport passes in Lisbon or Porto, usually 30 to 40 euro a month. Pretty standard.
Seems reasonable.
But here's a surprise for many. Car ownership costs. Portugal actually ranks 4th highest in Europe for that.
Really? Why is that?
Mostly fuel prices. Petrol's around 1.7 euro per liter, sometimes higher. So while your daily coffee might be cheap, running a car can definitely add up.
That's definitely something to factor in then, especially if you're planning to live outside a major city center. Challenges that affordable image a bit if you need a car.
It does.
Now, what about healthcare and education? Those are huge factors for anyone moving, especially with kids.
Right. Portugal's healthcare system, the SNS, is a big plus. It offers free coverage for legal residents. You pay minimal co-payments, usually like 5 to 20 euro for appointments or emergency visits, often less than a fancy coffee.
Wow. Okay, free coverage for residents.
Yeah. Now, if you want private insurance, that's an option too. Costs maybe 30 to 150 euro a month per person, depending on age and coverage. That gets you GP consultations for around 50 euro, 60 euro.
And education.
Education is kind of a mixed bag, cost-wise. Public schools are free, which is fantastic. But if you need or want international schools, that's a significant expense. You could be paying anywhere from 400 to 1,800 euro
Per child.
per child. Yeah. Depending on the school, that's a cost that can really sneak up on families if they haven't budgeted for it.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got a good handle on the costs inside Portugal and how much they vary. Let's zoom out now. How does Portugal really stack up against the rest of Europe? This is where it gets really interesting, I think.
It really does. Okay, Western Europe, the cost differences are pretty clear.
Yeah.
But often, offset by higher salaries elsewhere. Take Germany. It's roughly a third, 34% more expensive overall than Portugal.
Okay.
But German average salaries are way higher, around 38,000 euro, compared to Portugal's maybe 18,000, 22,000. So that gives Germans about 117% more purchasing power.
Big difference.
Huge. Berlin rents, maybe 1,200 to 2,000. And Germany has that unique 49 Deutschland ticket for nationwide travel. Portugal has nothing like that. On the flip side, German electricity is pricey, around 39 euros per 100 kilowatt.
Interesting. What about France?
France is a funny one, about 42% higher living costs overall than Portugal. But get this, rent is actually about 12% cheaper on average.
Cheaper rent in France. How does that work?
Well, Paris rents are still sky high, 1,500 to 2,200 euro. But outside the capital, in smaller French cities, you can find real value in housing compared to, say, Lisbon now.
Okay.
But your groceries in France, 60% higher than Portugal. Restaurants, over 50% more expensive. The average French salary, around 31,000, still gives about 80% more purchasing power, though.
So even with higher day-to-day costs, the earning potential in these Western European countries often kind of balances it out, or more than balances it out.
Exactly. The Netherlands makes that super clear. It's about 38% more expensive overall. Amsterdam rents, hitting 2,000, 2,500, maybe 36% higher than Portugal's average.
Wow.
But Dutch salaries average over 45,000 roll. That gives them a massive 122% greater purchasing power.
Okay.
And you see similar patterns in Belgium and Austria. Costs are 35, 43% higher. But rents can actually be a little lower than Portugal's average sometimes.
Yeah.
And again, significantly higher salaries mean much better purchasing power.
Right.
Then you have the extremes, like Luxembourg. Highest living costs, yes, but also Europe's highest average salaries, nearly 50,000 euros. The result, a staggering 220% more purchasing power, even with rents at 1,800, 2,500 dollars.
Incredible.
And Ireland, well, the housing crisis there is famous. Rents are about 86% higher than Portugal. Dublin's easily 2,000 euro, 3,000 a month. Higher salaries, over 35,000, help a bit, but housing really bites there.
So it's clear Western Europe generally means higher costs, but often much higher salaries create a different kind of affordability equation. It's not just about the sticker price.
Precisely.
What about the Nordic countries and Eastern Europe? They must paint very different pictures.
Absolutely. Very different ends of the spectrum. The Nordics, like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, they all cost significantly more than Portugal. Denmark tops the chart, maybe 61% more expensive overall.
60%.
Yeah. But interestingly, Danish rents are only about 13% higher than Portugal's average. The catch, you're paying Europe's highest tax rate, nearly 56%.
Ouch.
But you get the fourth-ranked quality of life globally in return. It's a trade-off. Sweden and Finland, though, they offer some surprising rental bargains. Rents are actually 9% and 18% below Portugal's average.
Cheaper rent than Portugal in Sweden and Finland.
Yeah, despite overall living costs being 41% higher. Again, high salaries and truly exceptional public services, like Finland's quality of life score, which is incredibly high, balance things out.
Okay, so Nordics. High cost, high tax, but high quality. What about Portugal's closer neighbors in Southern Europe?
You don't find huge savings there, really. Spain is only about 4% more expensive overall, and rents are actually 7% lower. So very similar, maybe slightly cheaper on housing.
Right.
Italy runs about 26% more expensive overall, even though rents are about 17% cheaper than Portugal. Greece offers big rental savings, maybe 46% cheaper rent, but overall costs are about 16% higher than Portugal, and quality metrics often lag a bit.
So yeah, no massive bargains, just hopping over the border in the south. But Eastern Europe,
Yeah.
that sounds like where the real cost savings might be compared to Portugal.
It really is, if pure cost is the main driver.
Yeah.
Poland, for instance, costs about 10% less overall than Portugal, and rents are nearly 25% lower.
Okay.
The Czech Republic is interesting. Costs are barely higher than Portugal, maybe 4% more, but they have solid healthcare scores and a pretty favorable 23% flat tax rate.
Mm.
And then countries like Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, they offer overall savings of 17% compared to Portugal, with rents being dramatically lower, like 61% below Portuguese levels.
Wow, that's significant.
It is, but it's important to add their quality of life indices generally don't match up to Portugal standards, so there's often a trade-off there too.
Right, cost versus quality again. Okay, stepping outside Europe now.
Yeah.
What does this deep dive tell us about moving to Portugal from, say, the Americas
Oh.
or Asia? The differences there must be even more stark.
Oh, absolutely. Dramatic is the word. For people moving from the U.S., Portugal generally means about a 35% reduction in costs.
35% saving.
Yeah. And when you look at rents, New York, $4,000, $6,000 a month for an apartment. Suddenly, Lisbon's €1,200 looks like an incredible bargain.
Definitely.
Of course, Americans need to remember they still have U.S. tax obligations wherever they live, though the foreign earned income exclusion helps, letting you earn up to about $130,000 tax-free from the U.S. perspective.
Good point. What about from Brazil? There's a huge Brazilian community in Portugal.
That's a really different economic story. For Brazilians, Portugal is actually about 40% more expensive to live in.
More expensive.
Yeah, despite the average salary in São Paulo being quite low, maybe 665 equivalent. Housing costs in Portugal can jump 60–80% compared to Brazil, utilities 40–60% higher.
So why make the move then?
The compensation isn't financial savings. It's the dramatically improved infrastructure, reliable services, safety, stability, and crucially, the benefit of EU residency. Those are the real drivers.
Makes sense. And Canadians.
Canadians usually find about a 25% saving compared to home, especially on housing Toronto rents. CAD 2,400 to 3,500 are way higher than most places in Portugal. They do need to be aware of Canada's departure tax, though.
Right. And you mentioned unique situations like Venezuela.
Yeah, for Venezuelans, Portugal might be 15% more expensive on paper, but that cost difference is tiny compared to the huge leap in quality of life, moving from severe economic instability to EU standards, safety, and opportunity.
Completely different calculation.
Completely. And for UK residents, especially post-Brexit, Portugal offers around 40% savings. London's housing crisis makes Portuguese property look very appealing indeed. The biggest adjustments, cost-wise, are definitely for people coming from many parts of Asia and Africa. From India or China, costs can jump 300–400%.
300 to 400%.
Yeah, like rent in Mumbai might be around $30,000. That's about $360 US. Compare that to over 900 in Lisbon. It's a massive leap. Similarly, immigrants from Angola or Cape Verde might see costs increase 200–500%.
What?
Again, the trade-off is enormous gains in quality of life, services, stability, opportunity. South Africa is kind of an interesting middle ground. Costs there are maybe 50–60% lower than Portugal, but the infrastructure is relatively reasonable compared to some other regions.
Okay, so putting this all together, what does it mean for you, the listener, who might be dreaming of that move to Portugal? It's clearly not just about a single cost number. It really depends on where in Portugal you land and what you value most, right?
Exactly that. And the good news is Portugal's interior regions still offer really remarkable value, especially for expats who have some flexibility.
Tell me more about that.
Well, take Ahora, down in the Alentejo region. Beautiful historic city. You can find one-bedroom apartments there from €400, €500 a month. Property prices, just over €1,500 per square meter. It's becoming really popular with retirees looking for that authentic, slower pace of life.
400 rent sounds amazing.
It is. Or look at the Centro region. Towns like Aveiro, they call it the Venice of Portugal. Rents there are about 44% lower than Lisbon. Or Leiria, you might find places for €450 a month. They offer affordability, but you're still relatively close to the bigger cities.
So it's like Portugal has its own internal hidden gems if you look beyond Lisbon and the Algarve coast.
Precisely. And there are emerging spots gaining attention, too. Braga. Up north, it was named Europe's leading emerging tourism destination for 2024. Rents are around €500, €650. It's got the youngest population in Portugal, apparently, and a growing tech scene.
Interesting.
And the Silver Coast, that whole stretch between Lisbon and Porto, offers coastal living, but without the really high prices you see down in the Algarve, still gives you easy access to Lisbon.
What about the islands? Madeira and the Azores.
They have their own unique economics. Madeira actually had a lower VAT rate, 22%, and they cap flight prices for residents back to the mainland at 86 for return.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah, but property is pricier there, over 3,000 euros per square meter. They've also got that dedicated digital nomad village in Ponta do Sol. The Azores, on the other hand, have Portugal's lowest property costs, under 1,500 shekels per square meter, and an even lower VAT rate at 16%.
Sounds cheap.
It is, but the trade-off is isolation. You're quite far out in the Atlantic, so some conveniences are limited. And one thing to watch out for, anywhere popular, hidden costs. Services in heavy tourist zones can easily be 30–50% more expensive than in local residential areas.
Good tip.
And outside the main cities, having international private health insurance becomes more essential, maybe 35–85 euros a month. Property taxes, too. The annual IMI tax is usually 0.5% of the property value. And wealthier individuals need to know about AMI, an extra wealth tax on properties valued over 600,000 euros.
Okay, lots to consider there, which brings us back to a really crucial point you raised earlier, taxes. Especially with those NHR changes, that must be a huge factor now.
It really is a watershed moment, the end of the NHR regime in March 2025. It's not just a small tweak. For many people, especially retirees, it fundamentally changes the financial attractiveness.
Right.
Its replacement, this IFICI program, the Incentive for Scientific Research and Innovation, is much, much narrower. It's really aimed at researchers, academics, certain tech professionals. They can get a 20% flat tax on their Portuguese income and exemptions on foreign income.
But not for the average retiree anymore.
Exactly. And critically, foreign pensions, which used to benefit from very low or zero tax under NHR, now generally face Portugal's standard progressive tax rates.
Yeah.
Those rates can go up to 48%.
48%? That's a massive change from potentially zero.
Huge. It completely changes the budgeting for retirement income. Portugal's standard rates start low, 13% on the first 7,703 of income, but they climb steadily. Above 80,640, you hit that 48% bracket, plus potential solidarity charges on very high incomes over 250,000. And don't forget Social Security, 11% for employees, a higher 21.4% for self-employed people. But again, there are those regional advantages in Madeira and the Azores.
Yeah.
Lower corporate rates in Madeira for specific activities. Reduced income tax and VAT in the Azores. Those can be really appealing for, say, digital nomads or businesses that can choose their location.
So the tax landscape has definitely gotten more complex, less universally beneficial than it was.
Not without a doubt.
But if we connect this back to the bigger picture, Portugal's draw was never just about cost or taxes, was it? It's so much about the overall quality of life. What stands out for you there?
Yeah, the quality metrics are still really impressive.
Right.
International Living consistently ranks Portugal's healthcare #1 globally for expats. The WHO puts the system 12th worldwide. That public SNS system offering universal coverage with tiny fees, that's real peace of mind.
Absolutely.
And safety. It ranks 7th globally on the Global Peace Index. Crime rates are well below the global average. It's politically stable. You just feel safe there. Plus, the climate. Over 300 sunny days a year. That enables a year-round outdoor lifestyle that's just impossible in much of Northern Europe or North America.
Definitely a major draw.
And the infrastructure for modern life is good too. Widespread fiber internet, lots of co-working spaces supporting remote work. Portugal also ranks 6th globally for English proficiency, which really helps ease the transition for many newcomers.
So it's quite accessible for English speakers.
Generally, yes, especially in the cities and tourist areas. And the D8 digital nomad visa is still popular, though you need to show a monthly income of about 3,489, 4 times the Portuguese minimum wage.
Okay. And what about integrating, really becoming part of the culture, rewards and challenges?
Well, language can still be a hurdle. You do need A2 level Portuguese for permanent residency or citizenship, and navigating bureaucracy often requires some Portuguese, so you need to be prepared to learn. But the rewards, they're huge. You get to tap into that legendary Portuguese work-life balance, the cafe culture, the importance of family and friends, the amazing food and wine, the local festivals. It's a different rhythm of life, a shift maybe from just living to work to working to live.
That sounds pretty appealing. So finally, let's look ahead a bit. What's the economic outlook? How might that shape costs for someone thinking about moving to Portugal now or in the near future?
The Portuguese economy seems to be on a path of moderate, steady growth. GDP was up around 1.7% in 2024, projected maybe 1.9% for 2025. Inflation's come down quite a bit, which is good news. It dropped from over 5% down to 2.6% in 2024, and it's forecast to head towards 2.1% in 2025.
So costs should be stabilizing somewhat after the recent volatility.
That's reassuring. But what about housing? You said that market isn't cooling.
Yeah, housing is the persistent issue. Prices were still up almost 17% year over year through April 2025. That's a lot. Rental growth has slowed a little, from over 7% down to about 5.2% annually, but Lisbon and Porto especially still face serious supply shortages. Why aren't they just building more?
Construction costs are rising, up nearly 4% annually. That makes it harder and more expensive to build new housing, which just keeps the pressure on prices and rents in those high-demand areas.
Okay.
On the plus side, employment is at record highs. Unemployment is falling towards 6.2%. There are skill shortages in areas like tech, construction, healthcare. That's actually driving wage growth faster than GDP growth. Good news if you have those skills. But it might also put some upward pressure on the cost of services eventually.
So, wrapping this all up, what's the final takeaway for our listener? Portugal. Still a dream destination, or has the reality changed too much?
I think the takeaway is that Portugal might not be that hidden gem bargain basement destination it perhaps was a decade ago.
Yeah.
Housing costs have risen significantly, especially in hotspots, and the end of the NHR tax benefits is a major change.
Right, so it's not the extreme bargain anymore.
Probably not in the way people used to talk about it, but it clearly still holds really compelling advantages. Success now just requires more homework, meaning careful location selection is key. You need realistic budgeting, understanding those regional differences we talked about, and accepting that yesterday's rock-bottom Portuguese bargains have kind of evolved into today's fair value proposition. You're paying a reasonable price for a very high quality of life.
So for people who are prioritizing lifestyle, that quality of life, the safety, the climate, maybe more than just pure, absolute rock-bottom savings.
For those people, yes, Portugal absolutely continues to deliver one of the best overall packages you can find in Europe, possibly the world. That blend is still incredibly strong.
Okay, so it's evolved, maybe matured, but the core appeal remains if your priorities align. Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. Given all these nuances we've discussed, the differences between regions in Portugal, the comparisons across Europe and the world, the balance of costs versus quality, what factors truly define value for you when you're thinking about a new place to call home?